Wednesday, September 29, 1943. Dearest Kitty, it's Mrs. Van Dan's birthday. Other than one rational stamp each for cheese, meat, and bread, all she received from us was a jar of jam. Her husband, Russell, and the office staff gave her nothing but flowers and also food. Such are the times we live in. Beb had a nervous fit last week because she had so many errands to do. 10 times a day, people were sending her out for something, each time insisting she go right away or go again, that she'd done it all wrong. And when you think that she has her regular office work to do, that Mr. Clement is sick, that Miep is home with a cold, and that Beb herself has a sprained ankle, boyfriend troubles, and a grouchy father, it's no wonder she's at the end of her tether. We comforted her and told her that if she'd put her foot down once or twice and say she didn't have the time, the shopping list would shrink of their own accord. Saturday there was a big drama, the likes of which have never been seen here before. It started with the discussion of Van Maren, and ended in a general argument and tears. Cecil complained to mother that he was being treated like a leper, that no one was friendly to him, and that after all, he hadn't done anything to deserve it. This was followed by a lot of sweet talk, which luckily Mother didn't fall for this time. She told him we were disappointed in him and that on more than one occasion he'd been a source of great annoyance. Dazzle promised her the moon, but as usual, we haven't seen so much as a beam. There's trouble brewing around with the Van Dans. I can tell. Father's furious because they're cheating us. They've been holding back meat and other things. Oh, what kind of bombshell is about to burst now? If only I weren't so involved in all these kermesses. If only I could leave here. They're driving us crazy. Sunday, October 1943. Dearest Kitty, Dr. Clement is back. Thank goodness. He looks a bit pale, and yet he cheerfully set off to sell some clothes for Mr. Van Dan. The disagreeable fact is that Mr. Van Dan has run out of money. He lost his last 100 guilders in the warehouse, which is still creating trouble for us. The men are wondering how 100 guilders could wind up in the warehouses on a Monday morning. Suspicion bounds. Meanwhile, the 100 guilders have been stolen. Who's the thief? But I was talking about the money shortage. Mrs. Vandy has piles of dresses, clothes, and shoes, none of which she feels she can do without. Mrs. Vandy's suit is difficult to shift, and Peter's bike was put up for sale, but again. But it is back again, since nobody wanted it. But the story doesn't end there. You see, Mrs. Vandy is going to have to part with her fur coat. In her opinion, the firm should pay for our upkeep, but that's ridiculous. They just had a flaming row about it and entered the "oh my sweet pretty and darling Curly" stage of reconciliation. My mind boggles at the profanity this honorable house has had to endure in the past month. Father walks around with his lips pressed together, and whenever he hears his name, he looks up in alarm if he looks up in alarm as if he's afraid that he'll be called up for to resolve another delicate problem. Mother's so overwrought her cheeks are blotched with red. Margaret complains of headaches, Cecil can't sleep. Mrs. Vandy frets and fumes all day, and I've gone completely round the band. To tell you the truth, I almost forget who we're at odds with and who we're not. The only way to make my mind off is to study, and I've been doing that a lot lately. Friday, October 29, 1943. My dearest Kitty, Mr. Clement is out again. His stomach won't give him a moment of peace. He doesn't even know whether it's stopped bleeding. He came to tell us he wasn't feeling well and was going home, and for the first time he seemed really down. Mr. and Mrs. Vandy have had more ranking battles. The reason is simple. They're broke. They wanted to sell an overcoat and a suit for Mr. Vandy's, but were unable to find any buyers. His prices were much too high. Some time ago, Mr. Clement was talking about a furrier he knows. This gave Mr. Vandy the idea of selling his wife's fur coat. It's made of rabbit skin and she's had it for 17 years. Mrs. Vandy got 325 guilders for it, an enormous amount. She wanted to keep the money herself to buy new clothes after the war, and it took some doing before Mr. Vandy could make her understand that it was desperately needed to cover household expenses. You can't imagine the screaming, shouting, stamping of the feet, and swearing that went down. It was terrifying. My family stood holding its breath at the bottom of the stairs in case it might be necessary to drag them apart. All the bickering, tears, and nervous tension have become such a stress and strain that I fell into my bed at night crying and thanking my lucky stars that I have half an hour to myself. I'm doing fine, except I've got no appetite. I keep hearing, "Goodness, you look awful." I just admit they're doing their best to keep me fit. They're plying me with dextrose, cod liver oil, bruise yeast, and calcium. My nerves often get the better of me, especially on Sundays. That's when I rarely feel miserable. The atmosphere is stifling, sluggish, laden. Outside you don't hear a single bird, and deathly oppressive silence hangs over the house and clings to me as if it were going to drag me into the deepest regions of the underworld. At times like these, Father, Margaret, and Mother doesn't matter to me in the least. I wander from room to room, climb up and down in the stairs, and feel like a songbird whose wing has been ripped off and who keeps hurling itself against the bars of its dark cage. Let me out, where there's fresh air and laughter. A voice within me cries. I don't even bother to reply anymore, but lie down on the divan. Sleep makes the silence and terrible fear go by more quickly, helps pass the time, since it's impossible to kill it. Yours, Anne. Wednesday, November 3, 1943. Dearest Kitty, to take our minds off matter as well as to develop them, Father ordered a catalogue from a correspondence school. Margaret poured through the thick brochure 3 times without finding anything to her liking and within her budget. Father was easier to satisfy and decided to write and ask for a trial lesson in elementary Latin. No sooner said than done. The lesson arrived. Margaret set to work enthusiastically and decided to take the course. Despite the expenses, it's much too hard for me, though I would like to learn Latin. To give him a new project as well, Father asked Mr. Clement for a children's Bible so I could finally learn something about the New Testament. Are you planning to give Anne a Bible for Hanukkah? Margaret asked, somewhat perturbed. Yes, maybe. Well, maybe St. Nicholas Day would be a better occasion, Father replied. Jesus and Hanukkah, huh? Don't exactly go together. Since the vacuum cleaner is broken, I have to take an old brush to the rug every night. The windows closed, the lights on, the stoves burned, and then I'm brushing away the rug. That's sure to be a problem, I thought to myself the first time. There bound to be complaints. I was right. Mother got a headache from the thick clouds of dust whirling around the room. Margaret's new Latin dictionary was caked with dirt, and Pim grumbled that the floor didn't look any different anyway. Small thanks for my pains. We've decided that from now on the stove is going to be lit at the 7:30 on Sunday morning instead of 5:30. I think it's risky. What will the neighbors think of our smoky chimney? It's the same with the curtains. Ever since we first went out into hiding, they've been tackled. They've been tackled firmly to the windows. Sometimes one of the ladies or gentlemen can't resist the urge to peek outside. The result, a storm of reproaches. The response, oh, nobody will notice. That's how every act of carelessness begins and ends. No one will notice, no one will hear, no one will pay a bit of attention. Easy to say, but it is true. Is it true? At the moment, the tempestuous quarrel has subsided. Only Dussel and Mr. Van Daan are still at loggerheads. When Dussel is talking about Mrs. Van D, he invariably calls her the old brat and that stupid hag, and conversely, Mrs. Van D refers our ever so learned gentleman as an old maid or a touchy, neurotic spinster, etc. The pot calling the kettle black. Yours, Anne. Monday evening, November 8, 1943. Dearest Kitty, if you were to read all my letters in one sitting, you'd be struck by the fact that they were written in a variety of moods. It annoys me to be so dependent on the mood here in the annex, but I'm not the only one. We're all subjected to them. If I'm engrossed in a book, I have to rearrange my thoughts before I can mingle with other people, because otherwise they might think I was strange. As you can see, I'm currently in the middle of a dispersion. I couldn't really tell you what is it set off, but I think it's seen for my cowardice, which confronts me at every turn. This evening, when Beb was still here, the doorbell rang long and loud. I instantly turned white, my stomach churned, and my heartbeat was wildly, and all because I was afraid. At night in bed, I see myself alone in a dungeon without father and mother, or I'm roaming the streets, or the annex is on fire, or they come in the middle of the night to take us away, and I crawl under my bed in depression. I see everything as if it were actually taking place, and to think it might all happen soon. Mia often says she envies us because we have such peaceful and quiet here. That may be true, but she is obviously not thinking about our fear. I simply can't imagine the world without ever be normal will ever be normal again for us. I need to talk about after the war, but it's as if I were talking about a castle in the air, something that can never come true. I see the eight of us in the annex as if we were a patch of blue sky surrounded by menacing black clouds. The perfectly round spot on which we're standing is still safe, but the clouds are moving in on us, and the ring between us and the approaching danger is pulled tighter and tighter. We're surrounded by darkness and danger, and our desperate search for a way out, we keep bumping into each other. We look at the fighting down below and the peace and beauty above us. In the meantime, we've been cut off by the dark mass of clouds, so that we can go neither up nor down. It looms before us like an impenetrable wall trying to crush us, but not yet able to. I can only cry out and implore, "Oh, rain, open wide and let us out." Yours, Anne. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Anyways, let's go. Thursday, November 1911. Thursday, November 11, 1943. Thursday, November 11, 1943. Dearest Kitty, I have a good title for this chapter, Ode to my fountain pen, in memoriam. My fountain pen was always one of my most prized possessions. I valued it highly, especially because it had a thick nib, and I can only write neatly with thick nib. It has led a long, interesting fountain pen life, which I Will summarize below. When I was 9, my fountain pen packed in cotton wool arrived as a sample of no commercial value all the way from Ashen, where my grandfather, the kindly donor, used to live. I lay in bed with the flu while the February wind howled around our flat. This splendid fountain pen came in a red leather case, and I showed it to my girlfriends, the first chance I got. Me, Anne Frank, the proud owner of a fountain pen. When I was 10, I was allowed to take the pen to school, and to my surprise, the teacher ever even let me ride with it. When I was 11, however, my treasure had been tucked away again because my sixth form teacher allowed us to only use school pens and ink pots. When I was 12, I started at the Jewish Lyceum, and fountain pen was given a new case in honor of the occasion. Not only did it have room for a pencil, it also had a zipper, which was made more impressive. When I was 13, the fountain pen went with me in the annex, and together we raced through countless diaries and composition. I turned 14, and my fountain pen was enjoying the last year of its life with me when it was just after 5 on Friday afternoon. I came out of the room and was about to sit down at the table to write when I was roughly pushed to one side to make room for Margaret and Father, who wanted to practice their Latin. The fountain pen remained unused on the table, while its owner, sighing was forced to make do with a very tiny corner of the table where she began rubbing beans. That's how we removed mold from the beans and restored them to their original state. At 5:45, I swept the floor, dumped the dirt into a newspaper along with the rotten beans, and tossed it into the stove. All a giant flame shot up, and I thought it was wonderful that the stove, which had been gasping its last breath, had made such a miraculous recovery. All was quiet again. The Latin students had left, and I sat down at the table to pick up where I'd left off, but no matter where I looked, my fountain pen was nowhere to find. Inside, I took another look. Margaret looked, Mother looked, Father looked, Dussel looked, but it had vanished. Maybe it fell in the stove along with the beans, Margaret suggested. No, it couldn't have, I replied. But that evening, when my fountain pen still hadn't turned up, we all assumed it had been burned, especially because celluloid is highly inflammable. I No, it couldn't have, I replied. But that evening, when my fountain pen still hadn't turned up, we all assumed it had been burned, especially because sunlight is highly inflammable. Our darkest fears were confirmed the next day when Father went to the empty stove and discovered the clip used to fasten it to a pocket among the ashes. Not a trace of gold nib was left. It must have melted into stone, Father conjectured. I'm left with one consolation, small though it may be. My fountain pen was cremated, just as I would like to be someday. Yours, Anne. Wednesday, November 17, 1943. Dearest Kitty, recent years events have the house rocking on its foundations. Owing to an outbreak of diphtheria at Beb's, she wouldn't be allowed to come in contact with us for 6 weeks. Without her, the cooking and shopping will be very difficult, not to mention how much we'd miss her company. Mr. Clement is still in bed and has eaten nothing but gruel for 3 weeks. Mr. Kugler is up to his neck in work. Margaret sends her Latin lessons to a teacher who corrects and then retends them. She is registered under Beb's name. The teacher's very nice and witty too. I bet he's glad to have such a clever pupil. Dussel is in a turmoil and we don't know why. It all began with Dussel saying nothing when he was upstairs. He didn't exchange so much as a word with either Mr. or Mrs. Van Daan. We all noticed it. This went on for a day. This went on for a few days, and then Mother took the opportunity to warn him about Mrs. Vandy, who could make life miserable for him. Dussel said Mr. Van Daan had started the silent treatment and had no intention of breaking it. I should explain that yesterday was November 16, the first anniversary of our office living in the annex. Mother received a plant in honor of the occasion, but Mrs. Van Daan, who had alluded to the date for weeks and made no bones about the fact that she thought Dussel would treat us to a dinner, received nothing. Instead of making use of the opportunity to thank us for the first time for unselfishly taking him in, he didn't utter a word. And on the morning of the 16th, when I asked him whether I should offer him my congratulations or my condolences, he replied that either one would do. Mother, having cast herself in the role of peacemaker, made no headway whatsoever, and the situation finally ended in a draw. I can say without exaggeration that Dussel has definitely got a screw loose. We often laugh to ourselves because he has no memory, no fixed opinions, and no common sense. He's amused us more than one by trying to pass on his new he just heard, since the message invariably gets scrambled in transmission. Furthermore, he answers every reproach or accusation with a load of fine promises, which he never manages to keep. A well-known expression, "The spirit of the man is great. How puny are his deeds." Saturday, November 27, 1943. Dearest Kitty, last night, just as I was feeling asleep, Hannah Lee suddenly appeared before me. I saw her there, dressed in rags, her face thin and worn. She looked at me with such sadness and reproach in her enormous eyes that I could read the message in them. "Oh, Anne, why have you deserted me? Help me, help me. Rescue me from this hell." And I can't help her. I can only stand by and watch while the other people suffer and die. All I can do is pray to God to bring her back to us. I saw Hanley and no one else, and Anstead. Why? I misjudged her. I misjudged her. I misjudged her. Judged her. I misjudged her. Wasn't mature enough to understand how difficult it was for her. She was devoted to her friends, and it must have seemed as though I was trying to make her away. The poor thing, she must have felt awful. I know, because I recognized the feeling in myself. I was an occasional flash of understanding. But then God selfishly wrapped up again in my own problems and pleasures. It was mean of me to treat her that way, and now she was looking at me, oh, so helplessly, with her pale face and beseeching eyes. If only I could help her, dear God, I could. I have everything I could wish for, while fate has her in its deadly clutches. She was as devout as I am, maybe even more so, and she too wanted to do what was right. But then why have I been chosen to live? Well, she's probably going to die. What the difference between us? Why are we now so far apart? To be honest, I hadn't thought of her for months, for at least a year. I hadn't forgotten her entirely, and yet it wasn't until I saw her before me and I thought all of her suffering. Oh, Hanley, I hope that if you live to the end of the war and return to us, I'll be able to make you and make up with the wrong I've done to you. But even if I were ever in a position to help, she wouldn't need it more than she does now. I wonder if she ever thinks of me and what she's feeling. Merciful God, comfort her so that at least she won't be alone. Oh, if only you could tell her I'm thinking of her with compassion and love, it might help her go on. I've got to stop dwelling on this. I wouldn't get anywhere. I keep seeing her enormous eyes, and they haunt me. Does Hanley really and truly believe in God, or has religion merely been foisted upon her? I don't even know that. I never took the trouble to ask. Hanley, if only I could take you away, if only I could share everything I have with you. It's too late. I can't help or undo the wrong I've done, but I'll never forget her again, and I'll always pray for her. Yours, Anne. Monday, December 6, 1943. Dearest Kitty, the closer it got to St. Nicholas Day, the more we all thought back to last year's festival decorated basket. More than anyone, I thought it would be terrible to skip a celebration this year. After long deliberation, I finally came up with an idea. Something funny. I consulted Pim and Monday, December 6, 1943. Dearest Kitty, the closer it got to St. Nicholas's Day, the more we all thought back to last year's festival decorated basket. More than anyone, I thought it would be terrible to skip a celebration this year. After a long deliberation, I finally came up with the idea something funny. I consulted Prim, and a week ago, we set to work writing a verse for each other. Sunday evening at a quarter to 8, we trooped in upstairs, carrying the big laundry basket, which had been decorated with cutouts and bows made of pink and blue carbon paper on top of a large piece of brown wrapping paper with the notes attached. Everyone was rather amazed at the sheer size of the gift. I removed the note and read it aloud. Once again, St. Nicholas's Day has ever come to our hideaway. It wouldn't be quite as fun, I fear, as the happy days we had last year. Then we were hopeful. No reason to doubt. The optimism would win the bout, and by the time this year came around, we'd all be free, safe, and sound. Still, let's not forget it's St. Nicholas's Day. Though we've nothing left to give away, we'll have to find something else to do. No, so everyone please look in their shoe. As each person took inside their shoe as each person took their own shoe out of the basket, there was a roar of laughter. Inside each shoe was a little wrapped package addressed to its owner, yours Anne. Wednesday, December 22, 1943. Dearest Kitty, a bad case of flu has prevented me from writing to you until today. Being sick is dreadful. With every cough, I had to talk until the blanket once, twice, 3 times, and tried to keep from coughing anymore. Most of the time, the tickle refused to go away, so I had to drink milk with honey, sugar, or cough drops. I get dizzy just thinking about all the cures I've been subjected to. Sweating out the fevers, steam treatment, wet compresses, dry compresses, hot drinks, swabbling butter, lying still, heating pad, hot water bottles, lemonade, and every 2 hours the thermometer. Will these remedies really make you better? The worst part was when Mr. Dussel decided to play doctor and lay his pomaded head on my bare chest to listen to the sound. Not only did his hair tickle, but I was embarrassed, even though he went to school 30 years ago and does have some kind of medical degree. Why would he lay his head on my heart? After all, he is not my boyfriend. For that matter, he wouldn't be able to tell a healthy sound from an unhealthy one. He'd have to have his ears cleaned first, since he's becoming alarmingly hard of hearing. But enough about my illness. I am fit as a fiddle again. I've grown almost half an inch and gained 2 pounds. I'm pale but itching to get myself to my books. By way of exception, the only word that will do here. We're all getting on well together. No squabbles, though. That probably won't last long. There hasn't been such peace and quiet in this house for at least 6 months. Beb is still in isolation, but any day now her sister will no longer be contagious. For Christmas, we're getting extra cooking oil, sweets, and chuyekel. For Hanukkah, Mr. Russell gave Mrs. Van Dan and Mother a beautiful cake, which he asked me to bake. On top of all the work she has to do. Margaret and I received a brooch made out of a penny, all bright and shiny. I can't really describe it, but it's lovely. I also have a Christmas present for Miep and Beb for a whole month. I've saved up the sugar I put on my porridge, and Mr. Kleiman had used it to have a fondant made. The weather is drizzly and overcast. The weather is drizzly and overcast. The stove stink and the food lies heavily on our stomachs, producing a variety of rumbles. The war is at an impasse, spirits are low, yours end. Friday, December 24, 1943, Dear Kitty, as I've written many times before, moods have a tendency to affect us quite a bit here, and in my case, it's getting worse lately. A famous line from Goethe, on top of the world or in the depth of the despair, certainly applies to me. I'm on top of the world, and I think of how fortunate we are and compare myself to the other Jewish children in the depth of the despair when, for example, Mrs. Kleiman comes by and talks about Joppy's hockey club, canoes, trips, school plays, and afternoon teas with friends. I don't think I'm jealous of Joppy, but I long to have a really good time for once and to laugh so hard it hurts. We're stuck in this house like lepers, especially during winter and the Christmas and New Year holidays. Actually, I shouldn't even be writing this since it makes me seem so ungrateful, but I can't keep everything to myself, so I'll repeat what I said at the beginning. People is more patient than people. Whenever someone comes in from outside with the wind in their clothes and the cold on their cheek, I feel like burying my head under the blankets to keep from thinking. When will we be allowed to breathe fresh air again? I can't do that. On the contrary, I have to hold my head up high and put a bold face on things, but thought keep coming anyway, not just once but over and over. Believe me, if you've been shut up for a year and a half, it can get to be too much for you sometimes, but feelings can be ignored no matter how unjust or ungrateful they seem. I long to ride a bike, dance, whistle, look at the world, feel young, and know that I'm free. And yet I can't let it show. Just imagine what would happen if all eight of us were to feel sorry for ourselves too, or walk around with discontent clearly visible on our faces. Where would that get us? I sometimes wonder if anyone will ever understand what I mean, if anyone will ever overlook my ingratitude and not worry about whether or I'm not Jewish and merely see me as a teenager badly in need of some good plain fun. I don't know, and I wouldn't be able to talk about it with anyone since I'm sure I'd start to cry. Crying can bring relief as long as you don't cry alone. Despite all my theories and efforts, I miss every day and every hour of the day having a mother who understands me. That's why with everything I do and write, I imagine the kind of mom I'd like to be to my children later on. The kind of mom who doesn't take everything people say too seriously, but does take me seriously. I find it difficult to describe what I mean, but the word mom says it all. Do you know what I've come up with in order to give me the feeling of calling my mother something that should sounds like mom? I often call her Mumsy. Sometimes I shorten it to Mums, an imperfect mom. I wish I could honor her by doing that as. It's a good thing she doesn't realize this since it would make her only very unhappy. Well, that's enough for today. That's enough for that. My writing has raised me somewhat from the depths of despair. It's the day after Christmas, and I can't help thinking about him and the story he told me this time last year. I don't understand the meaning of his word, and as well as I do now. If only he'd bring it up again, I might be able to show him I understood what he meant. I think Pim told me because he who knows the intimate secrets of so many others need to express his own feeling for once. Pim never talks about himself, and I don't think Margaret has any inkling of what he's been through. Poor Pim, he can't fool me into thinking he's forgotten that girl. He never will. It's made him very unaccommodating since he's not blind to mother's fault. I hope I'm going to be a little like him without having to go through all what he has. Monday, December 17, 27, sorry. Monday, December 27, 1943. Friday evening, for the first time in my life, I received a Christmas present. Mr. Kleiman, Mr. Kugler, and the girls had prepared a wonderful surprise for us. Mia has a delicious Christmas cake with Peace 1944 written on top, and Bia provided biscuit. That were us two pre-war standards. There was a pot of yogurt for Peter, Margaret, and me, and a bottle of beer for each of the adults. And once again, everything was wrapped so nicely with pretty pictures glued to the packages. For the rest, the holidays passed by so quickly. First, Wednesday, December 29, 1943. I was very sad again last night. Grandma and Henley came to me once again. Grandma, oh sweet grandma, how little we understood what she suffered, how kind she always was, and what an interesting she took to in everything that concerned us, and to think that all the time she was carefully guarding her terrible secret. Grandma was always so loyal and good. She would never have let any of us down. Whatever happened, no matter how much I misbehaved, Grandma always stuck up for me. Grandma, did you love me, or did you not understand me either? I don't know. How lonely Grandma must have been in spite of us. You can't be lonely even when you're loved by so many people, since you're not still anybody's one and only. And Hanley, is she still alive? What she's doing, dear God, watch over her and bring her back to us. Nelly, you're a reminder of what my fate might have been. I keep seeing myself in your place, so why am I often miserable about what goes on here? I shouldn't be happy, contented, and glad, except when I'm thinking of Hanley, those suffering along with her. I'm selfish and cowardly. Why do I always think and dream most awful things and want to scream in terror? Because in spite of everything, I still don't have enough faith in God. He's given me so much which I don't deserve, and yet each day I make so many mistakes. Thinking about the suffering of those you hold dear can reduce you to tears. In fact, you could spend the whole day crying. The most you can do is pray to God to perform a miracle and save at least some of them. And hope I'm doing enough of that. Thursday, December 30, 1943. Dearest Kitty, since the last raging quarrel, since things have settled down here, not only outsiders ourselves thistles and upstairs, but also between Mr. and Mrs. Vandy. Nevertheless, a few dark thunder clouds are heading this way, and all because of food. Mrs. Vandy came up with the ridiculous idea of frying fewer potatoes in the morning and saving us from later in the day. Mr. Mother and Dussel and the rest of us didn't agree with her, so now we're diving up the potatoes as well. It seems the fat oils aren't being doled out fairly, and Mother is going to have to put a stop to it. I'll let you know if there are any interesting developments. For the last few months now, we've been splitting up the meat. There's with fat, ours without the soup. They eat it. We done the potatoes. Theirs peeled, ours not. The extras, and now the fried potatoes too. If only we could split up completely. Miss PSB had a picture postcard of the entire royal family complete for me. Julian looks very young, and so does the Queen. The three little girls are adorable. It was incredible nice of Pep, don't you think? Sunday, January 2, 1944. Dearest Kitty, this morning I had nothing to do, I leafed through the pages of my diary and came across so many letters dealing with the subject of mother in such strong terms that I was shocked. I said to myself, Annie, is that really you are talking about? Is that really you talking about hate? Oh, Annie. How could you? I continued to sit with the open book in my hand and wonder why I felt with so much of anger and hate that I had to confide it all to you. I tried to understand that Anne of last year and make apologies for her because as long as I leave you with the causation and accusations and don't attempt to explain what prompted them, my conscience won't be clear. I was suffering then and still do from moods that kept my head under water, figuratively speaking, and allowed me to see things only from my own perspective, without calmly considering what the other, those whom I, with my mercurial temperament, had hurt or offended, had said, and then acting as they would have done. I hid inside myself, thought of no one but myself, and calmly wrote down all my jaw, sarcasm, and sorrow in my diary. Because this diary has become a kind of scrapbook. It means a great deal to me, but I could easily write over and done with so on so many of its pages. I was fierce with mother and still am a lot of the time. It's true she didn't understand me, but I didn't understand her either. Because she loved me, she was tender and affectionate, but because of the difficult situations I put her in and the sad circumstances in which she found herself, she was nervous and irritable, so I can understand why she was often short with me. I was offended, took it too far, too hard, and was insolent and beastly to her, which in turn made her unhappy. We were caught in a vicious cycle of unpleasantness and sorrow. Not a very happy period for either of us, but at least it's coming to an end. I didn't want to see what was going on. I feel very sorry for myself, but still, that's understandable too. These violent outbursts on paper are simply expressions of my anger that is normal life. I could have worked off by locking myself in my room and stamping my feet a few times or calling mother names behind her back. The period of tearfully passing judgment on mother is over. I've grown wiser and mother's nerves are a bit steadier. Most of the time, I manage to hold my tongue when I'm annoyed, and she does too. So on the surface, we seem to getting along better. But there's one thing I can do, and that's to love mother with the devotion of a child. I soothe my concerns with the thought that it's better for unkind words to be down on paper than for mother to have to carry them around in her heart. Yours, Anne. Thank you.